Welcome to my studio. Now today I'm going to be painting something that might inspire fear in some people, including myself, and that is I'm going to be painting an eye. Now painting just facial features and the portrait in general, I feel there's a lot of anxiety surrounding it because it's difficult. It's just plain more difficult than other subject matter, and that in a way it's a lot of it has to do with because there's a lot of precision involved. And also, there's a lot of just this very strong desire to have it turn out a certain way. And a lot of that I feel like has to do with wanting it to look exactly like the reference and wanting it to look exactly like the person that they are painting, whether it just be their eye or their whole portrait. But that's not the way to go about it, especially if you want your painting to look like your reference. And I'm going to be showing how to go about it in my painting demonstration that I'm going to be doing in this video. Now the reason for that is, and also I'll back up a little bit, just one reason why, just in general, painting facial features, painting the eye in general is quite difficult is because in our mind, we objectify it so much, probably more than anything else in the world, because we are always seeing eyes. Whenever we see a person, we first notice their eyes in ourselves and other people. That's kind of what we see all the time, and we're always seeing eyes. And so in our brain, we see an eye, and we know exactly what an eye looks like. And we are not really seeing it in terms of color spots and values coming together, which is exactly how you need to see it when you're painting. So it's really difficult to kind of step back just in our mind, in our brain, and to roll that back, just that very, very strongly ingrained habit of seeing an eye as an eye and not seeing it as just groups of colors coming together and harmonizing and in values just building on each other in certain ways. And so that's exactly what I'm going to be showing in my demonstration and doing here in the painting. And this is something, just as how painting works. This is how I personally, just in general, how I paint in my work. This is how I've been taught. My teaching, the way I paint is very much rooted in the traditions of painting, just things that have been passed down for hundreds of years. I've traveled all over the world to learn the things that I have learned. It's really difficult to find some of these things, so it's really exciting to be able to pass them on just in this format and to be able to do it online like this. Now at the end of today's video, I am going to be doing a little unboxing, not sponsored in any way at all. This is just a roll of linen that I've come to really love, and it's actually a really great price. So I'm excited to unbox it and share it and show it to you. Now, before I get started though, I just want to quickly share the reference that I'll be using to paint this eye. And it's actually a painting by Raphael, and I have this really large book, Raphael paintings, and you can see her portrait there. Woman with a Veil is the title of the painting. Now, just as a brief aside, this book is a Taschen book. I love this art book publisher. This is not sponsored in any way at all. Just to share, Taschen books are amazing. I highly recommend this book, any other art book by Taschen. All right, so let's get started with the painting. Now to start here, I do a quick, simple sketch just to capture the basic architecture of the eye that I'm painting. This is always good to do no matter what you're painting, just to have just a basic idea of what your composition is and where things are placed generally on your painting. So I'm beginning here with the center part of the eye. There isn't any right or wrong spot to start when painting an eye, but it's good to start in an area where you can kind of establish clear values. So I have kind of that really dark center of the eye, and then kind of the outer area that's a little bit lighter, and then there's a medium value that's kind of next to that in the corner of the eye. Now here's the upper part, kind of that upper eyelid area that's just above the eye, and you can see how I'm breaking them down into just distinct areas of color. It's just one area of color on one side for that dark color, then a lighter, just one color for the right side. And here I'm also dealing with just smaller areas where there's just a little bit more subtlety that's involved. But you can see I'm really breaking down the spots of color into large areas of color, and kind of simplifying what I'm seeing. I am paying attention to and putting down also some of the more subtler shifts of value and color, but I'm not getting overly kind of wrapped up in that, because those are just small details that can sometimes be distracting. I'm first kind of really trying to capture the big areas of value and color, but at the same time also sometimes taking the time to get some of those subtleties, but within reason. Now this works well because I will then be going back and capturing those more subtle shifts of value and color just once the foundation is laid with the large areas, kind of laid down the value and color. And it's like anything, you need to first have a good foundation before you can get to those smaller, subtler kind of areas of color and value. But you can see how just everything that we have here so far has been built really just by spots of color. And we're working as well, of course, with soft edges and hard edges, because we have areas of similar values coming together that create soft edges, then areas where there's really kind of sharp contrasting values with light values and dark values next to one another that create sharper values, like just right here. That lower left corner part of the eye, we have that lighter value, then that darker value, and that creates that sharper edge. And so we have a sense of space developing just within the eye because of all of these edges that are being developed in the painting at the same time while we're working on the spots of color and spots of value. Now, all of these elements are the fundamentals of painting. They are what make up painting. They make up the language of painting. And you cannot really paint anything, whether it's abstract or representational, without these fundamentals. And the most important of all the fundamentals of painting is value, because everything rests on value. You won't have good color if you don't have good value. It all really relies upon the values that you use. So it's really important to first and foremost pay attention to the values that you're using and really break down whatever you're painting, especially if it's an eye, as we're doing here, break things down into areas and spots of light and dark value groups and simplify them as much as possible. And then you can think in color and kind of really get those colors in there. But you first need to train yourself to see things in value in order to be able to do that. Now going back to the eye painting here, I've been working on painting the eyebrow, and I'm now going to be transitioning into really working on getting the kind of the skin to really move into the eyebrow and for that transition to be smooth. And this really involves a lot of thinking of value, because we're dealing with a lot of very similar values, where one value is very similar to a next value to create that smooth transition, even though those colors are very different. But they have similar values. And this is why it's so important to be able to train yourself to see values clearly. And one really good way to do this is to just start with a black and white painting, or do a just monochrome drawing. Really anything works. You can work on painting an eye, whatever kind of subject matter you would like to do. And just train yourself to be able to see values clearly and then incorporate color. Right, so here's the finished painting. Now, as you can see, it's a little bit larger than life. I personally don't typically paint larger than life in my own work, but I think it can sometimes be helpful, especially when you're kind of working things out, especially when you're dealing with something a little bit more on the smaller side. Like eyes are not super large. I mean, some people have larger eyes than others, but just as a generality, just eyes are a little bit on the smaller side, just in general. So it can be helpful to kind of enlarge things sometimes a little bit, especially when you're working through things, trying to get yourself, retrain yourself to see things in terms of color and value instead of as an object. And I really encourage you, just especially if this is a struggle, and honestly, I feel like it's a lifelong struggle for everyone, including myself, because we have to constantly retrain ourselves to see the world in terms of color and light and value instead of as objects. And it's a continual process, and you grow alongside it. You know, but there's always more to learn and more to develop just in seeing better as an artist, as a painter. But I do encourage you to work on, sometimes, you know, breaking things up. Just working on a facial feature is a little less daunting than a whole portrait, and that can be helpful to do that. I encourage you to work on that. Here, this is not sponsored in any way at all. I got this with my own money, and I personally use and love this, which is why I want to show it to you, because it's linen and it's already primed, and it's really not very expensive in comparison to other things, which I really like that. So I'll show it to you here in a bit. And here's opened, and this out. There it is. All right, so it is Blick Studio Linen primed medium texture. So it's kind of has it's not super fine, it's kind of more of a medium level of linen texture, which I really like. So lovely, lovely texture. This is of course just the back side. You won't be painting on this part. All right, so here it is. You can see that texture there. Now, so this is 1 yard by either 87 or 89 inches. So it's a decent amount, and it's $40, which is great, honestly, especially for it to be primed. Now, it is acrylic primed. Personally, I prefer oil primes, but the prices for kind of the same size and oil primed is a lot more. And so this is, I really love having this in the studio to paint from for sketches, for stuff that I'm kind of working out, those kind of things. It's terrific, and I really like it actually. It's has a really nice, has some texture to it, but it's not too much texture. So it's a little bit hard to see on here, but you can kind of get an idea of the level of texture. So I'm going to link that below. You can check it out if you're interested, including all the other materials that I used in this video. You can find that below. And if you have any questions at all, please write them below. Also, if you have any ideas for future videos that you'd love to see, or if you just like to say hi, I truly love hearing from you. I love reading all your comments. Thank you so much for all of you who have shared and written comments. I so appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video.